Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our webinar of today, our ITSMF webinar about ITSM, Cloud, DevOps, and Lean IT, and if they are better together. A couple of things up front. We are recording this webinar, so everybody who joined or signed up will be informed about where you can find the recording, and you can watch it again and listen to it at your leisure. So let's start real quick then, first with a little poll to see if everybody can see the slides and hear me. So if you want to respond real quick, then we can move on. And so far I can see we have 100% of people that can see it. Give you a couple more seconds. And I see that some of you don't. Well, if you cannot hear me, that's going to be difficult. I will put something in the chat. But if you cannot see the slides but can hear me, then please, since most of you really can see me, please restart and try to log back in. All right. So, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. There we go. So welcome everybody. Like I said, my name is Adrian van der Rijken. I'm the Alliance Portfolio Director of ITSM USA, and we are having an exciting panel discussion today. We have some of the best experts in the field that we have out there. So let me shortly introduce you to who is on the panel today. We have, first of all, Mark. Mark is a recognized thought leader in IT service management and cloud computing, and he's a best-selling author, innovator, educator, and a keynote speaker and management consultant. He is one of 90 people certified globally at the ITIL master level and is a former director of ITSMF Ireland. Mark is director and owner of Red Circle Strategies and is the author and master trainer of the Professional Cloud Service Manager course. Mark is also the author of the Service Catalog and is published in 4 languages. And then we have Troy. Troy is the VP for Research and Development for Pink Elephant and the leading IT governance and service management authority with an extensive 20 years of experience in executive IT management training and consulting. He is a frequent speaker, and he is published and contributing author for multiple books on topics such as Lean IT, defining IT success through the Service Catalog, and official ITIL publications, including the ITIL's Planning to Implement IT Service Management and the Continual Service Improvement edition. Troy was recently named one of the top 25 industry influencers in tech support and by HDI. And then we have Robert. Robert is currently serving as the principal analyst for Forrester, responsible for the DevOps research agenda and a member of the core cloud team. Rob has had a long involvement with the ITSMF USA, serving on the board for multiple years and chairing numerous working groups. Rob loves giving back to our industry by having contributed to multiple frameworks, including COBIT, ITIL, and many of the ISO standards. And then we have Mike. Mike is a lifelong practitioner of Lean IT, learning and applying Lean thinking for over 20 years. He's the co-author of the seminal book Lean IT and recently released his second book, the Lean IT Field Guide. Many call him the father of Lean IT, where his focus on connecting with people, leading with respect, and leveraging technology positively impacted hundreds of organizations. Mike is a faculty member with the Lean Enterprise and an adjunct professor with the Shingo Institute. Besides that, Mike is on the editorial committee for the Lean IT Association. His contributions to LIDA and all things Lean demonstrate his passion and earns him our respect and acknowledgement as the father of the Lean IT movement. And our interviewer for today, Deborah Burden. She is the managing director of the DevOps Agile Skills Association. Before a promotion to managing director, she had a very visible position in the organization as the head of DASA marketing. She was the orchestrator of the global launch in April, as well as a principal architect in helping drive the messaging, market awareness, and engagement that has helped DASA establish international recognition and membership. Deborah is also an active contributor to the Lean IT Association and Cloud Credential Council. Deborah brings more than 25 years of IT industry experience. She has an in-depth knowledge and understanding of ITSM, Lean IT, cloud computing, DevOps, and all kinds of other IT best practices. So our agenda. So we had the introductions, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the organizations that all our great panel members represent. And then after that, we will actually go into the meat and the most important part of this webinar, our expert panel discussion. So Mark, you want to tell a little bit about the organization you represent?
I will. Thank you, Adrian. Hello, everybody, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Mark O'Loughlin. So I work with the Cloud Credential Council. I've been working with the CCC for the last 4 years. And what we do here is the Cloud Credential Council is it's a vendor-neutral certification body. We focus on a portfolio which includes a number of courses and certifications, such as Professional Cloud Service Manager, Professional Cloud Service Architect, Professional Cloud Service Designer, and also branching out now into other areas such as big data. A lot of these will overlap with some of the other areas that we'll talk about today. So that's a growing portfolio which is ever growing. The Cloud Credential Council, it's a members-based organization as well, and we find that's very important to us, that we want to ensure we get input on a global scale from a wide variety of industry, academia, public sector, private sector bodies throughout the globe in the creation and development of the portfolio of education and training services that we provide. Personally, myself, as Adrian had mentioned, I'm the author of the Professional Cloud Service Manager course and the Global Master Trainer for that. So a key thing that with the CCC, the Cloud Credential Council, is the vendor neutral status that we apply to the courses and the training that we create, accredit, and then deliver through the training network.
Thank you, Mark. How about you, Robert? And if we can't hear you, Robert, but let's go with Troy. Oh, there you go.
There I go. You know, it's always good to go off mute when you speak, isn't it?
That works.
So Robert Stroud, I'm representing the ITSMF USA today. And the ITSMF, or Service Management Forum, is a membership forum globally promoting the ongoing development of service management and best practices, all sorts of best practices, as we all know, that have come to bear over the years, including Lean, of course DevOps, various cloud standards, COVID, things like that. The association has over 60,000 members worldwide and operates in a model where there's a US chapter, for instance, and within the US there's lots of local interest groups, and these local groups get together, get specialists together, get your like-minded peers together to share information, experience, and collaborate on the challenges and the opportunities that you have in your local organisation. It's really focusing on growing, learning, and extending your skill sets, making you more valuable, both to your organisation, your own career, and of course the community as a whole. It's really around continual learning, and that's what the world's about, right? We're all continual learners today, and the ITSMF fosters and engenders a continual learning regime that allows you to develop your skills, refine your skills, and move forward. And I think that's a key aspect of what we're doing. And of course, over time, the ITSMF has been around for many years. It's evolved and emerged, you know, starting initially as the ITL or ITIL user group. It's actually evolved into an association which really takes and embraces frameworks that will help you do your role well as service managers. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Robert. Troy.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, it's a pleasure to be on the webinar today. And today I'm representing DASA, the DevOps Agile Skills Association, an association that was formed over a year ago through the bringing together of multiple organizations who have thought leadership and understanding around both the DevOps principles and practices as well as the aspect of Agile. And is kind of a mission to take the principles of Agile as well as the underlying structural issues and teaming issues and concerns around automation to another level of practical application. And so the interesting thing about this association is that it's made up of a number of organizations. Pink Elephant is one of those as a DASA forerunner, an early adopter, that together we come together and we figure out what this means, and we establish a source of truth and a practical application of these things that make sense in organizations and can actually meaningfully impact value generation. And so I'm a practitioner in the context of I'm a volunteer with DASA, but Pink Elephant is also an accredited courseware provider. And so we, of course, as an organization focused on training, events, and consulting, are a contributor to that as well. And recently I've had the opportunity to advise on the practitioner syllabus. So the practitioner course recently released to public availability is now something that can be now pursued after the foundations, the fundamentals, excuse me, and in respect to that I have been a contributing author. All right, thank you.
Thanks. And Mike.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here today with such a great group. 5-6 years ago, when we wrote the book Lean IT, we could only dream that someday the core principles of Lean would really extend throughout the IT community, and we're truly seeing that today. And I was quite excited a couple of years ago when LEDA formed, because the purpose of LEDA was really to get some clarity around the body of knowledge of Lean directly applied to information and technology. And very much like DASA, we gathered together a group of leading experts and thought leaders in the field and said, what are the core principles? How can we clarify it in such a way that it becomes accessible to people? And how can we also decrease the noise that's out there? A lot of misunderstanding about what it is and what it is not. And by creating a body of knowledge, we created a foundation of learning. It's not the end-all be-all. I don't think any organization ever is. This is a learning journey. But LEDA was able to build some clarity around that. We also offer a series of courses. I teach those courses along with some other very, very experienced and qualified people. And the real purpose is to get some consistency around how we approach Lean and IT.
Thank you, Mike. And before I forget, for the audience, if you have any questions, you can obviously ask those questions in the box that you see on your screen. So any questions, put them there, and then at the end of the session, we'll when we have time, we'll go through some of those and see if our panelists can answer those questions as well. So, Robert, I know you said a couple of things already about ITSMF, but what makes, if anything else more, what makes your framework relevant?
Yeah, love to share a few things. So, ITSMF is an association more than a framework. But if you think about the way we've developed and emerged as service managers, our roles have changed and transitioned over the time that we've been in our roles. Whether you're fresh and new to the association or to the profession, or you're a little bit older. And the reality is we've had these frameworks transition, and we've got a handle on ITIL as a common language. And now we've found our businesses are transforming, where we're seeing this formation or this fusing of lean methodology, DevOps, cloud, and IT service management all coming together. And this is one of those things where this common area amongst all of them creates both some opportunities for learning and some connection. And the ITSMF really looks to drive best practice and good education through that through the intersection of these associations. And whether you're a manager, a technical person, or even an executive, the information and the content is actually geared towards your level. So you actually get multiple forms of information so that you can actually understand and learn, and you can engage with the various frameworks, and you can work through them and leverage them and blend them together to actually give you the ubiquitous solution that you need to deal with this era of business transformation and business technology. one of the things I, being a long-term contributor, but also a long-term member, I've found really interesting are the social opportunities to meet, whether they're in person at local interest groups or, of course, Fusion, the annual service management conference, and, of course, lots of summits like these. I mean, these are really opportunities where you can share and grow your knowledge and grow your opportunities. And the thing is that we've really learned that service management goes beyond IT. Service management and DevOps and Lean and other practices are being adopted within the business as a whole. So it really extends your value. So one of the things we see really that makes the, if you want to call ITSMF USA a framework, we will. But one of the things that makes it really relevant are these connections that you can make. These connections, and I have lifelong connections through the association and the membership. And these associations and membership give me someone to call when I want to actually ask a question and learn something new. So really the best thing about the ITSMF USA as a framework is it provides you that connection with members, peers, vendors even if you want, so that you can actually draw on this knowledge and keep up to date with the community and the industry and know where you need to go and know where you need to invest your time. Plus, additionally, the ITSMF pulls in all these frameworks that we're talking about today and merges them together so that you can leverage and get access to them from one point. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you, Robert. Mark.
Thanks, Adrian. Professional Cloud Service Manager, if I look at the aims, first of all, as to simplify very briefly for our session today, I think it aims to provide consistency to, the what and how, what is cloud and how we go about implementing cloud and adopting cloud, but from what I will say a right perspective, from the right thing to do. It certainly answers the question, what is cloud? That's one of the first things we do when we run these sessions and we talk about the framework. In every group session I ask that question, what is cloud? If I have 10 people in the room, I'll get back 10 different answers, which is amazing. We're 10 years into this cloud journey. When we finish our session, everybody answers the question the same way because they've now learned what is cloud through this learning process. We like to put structure behind that. So what is cloud? Why is it? Things like even what are the characteristics? And the idea is to get a full immersion into what is cloud, more so than just the technology. So we look beyond the technology into the organization itself and the impacts that cloud will have and is having and how we deal with those. Another question I might ask is, who's seen a cloud strategy? The majority of times, nearly all times, in a session, the answer is no, we haven't seen it. When they leave these sessions, the people go away informed with what strategies and how to actually strategize for cloud, which I think is very, very important. So it gives us understanding to start with, and then tools and frameworks and guidance to look at how do we strategize with cloud, how do we design with cloud, how do we transition with cloud, how do we operate cloud, and then how do we improve cloud. I purposely use those phrases there because they link directly back to the ITSM world, the 5 life cycle stages of ITIL. And as you'll see throughout the course of this call today, they linked then into the DevOps and Lean. How do we get continual delivery? How do we get that Lean approach as well? So I think that's quite important. It answers a number of questions in those areas. But also, again, similar to Rob there, it addresses areas at a managerial level, a technical level, and an executive level as well. So it's quite robust in that space, and specifically looks at the changes in roles and the changes organizations need to make within IT and outside of IT in order to be successful with cloud. Finally, it's vendor neutral, which is this framework applies to any organization, large, small, global. It's unique, relevant, and practical as well. And the idea of this framework is that you take it well outside the classroom and you bring back the guidance into your organizations and use that guidance to make change.
Thank you, Mark. Troy.
So Adrian, what I find fascinating about DevOps is that it's unlike anything that I've ever had experience with in the past. Most of us on the call, we've been experienced with a body of knowledge emerges, and then we find a way to make that relevant and practical, as Mike said, to organizations. But this is different. A couple of things are different about it. First of all, it didn't start with a body of knowledge and then we figure out how do we use this. It started with a question, really. A question was a business problem that said, how do we take how do we move from requirements to value generation and value delivery faster? And so it was really, how do we solve a business problem that is very real and challenging to organizations today as they're focused on speed to market? And so that question was answered by a series of things, as you would well expect. There's no one single answer. So DevOps also, as a term, is not a single framework or model or a book I can point you to. It's actually more of a collection or an aggregation of the best practices and principles and cultural thoughts and technology methods to basically achieve that business result. How do we move from requirements to value generation faster with improved flow, using a lean term? So some of that is understand that you can't accelerate what you don't understand. And so we're not accelerating something new, we're accelerating everything we've always done: service management, software development, project management. So understanding that we're looking at the value system of IT: plan, build, run, strategy, design, transition, operation, depending on how you like to term it. But to do that faster, you got to apply the lean premise of removing from your value stream waste, removing rework, removing defect, removing the things which impede your flow. Agile project management is a way to actually accelerate the development of new value. Theory of constraints, looking at your total value stream and understanding your total value stream will never flow faster than the bottleneck. So being able to look at value streams and identify bottlenecks. Culture and structure. This is an interesting area. Expanding on the agile concept of cross-functional teams, which you could argue came from Lean and the Kaizen event model. Building relationships across boundaries, cross-functional groups, has a massive impact on getting things done, because a lot of times organizations get things done through teaming structure. And then, of course, there's the newer areas we think about, which is in the concept of getting more mature around the constant and good practices of constantly integrating our code on a regular and daily basis. Architecture models and how we leverage microservices, which is really simply the next iteration of object-oriented programming, where now we have the service of the multiple services in an application decoupled and communicating with themselves through APIs, allowing us to have much smaller, lower risk changes and accelerate value proposition there. And the final one is, in the past, we've had all these point solutions from the point of plan, build, run. Well, now we're saying, why can't we have one standard way to do this, one tool to do that? And not only can we have one standard tool to do that practice, but can I link them up now in a literal conveyor belt to flow requirements to value? So it's like this DevOps word means all of the above. And that's confusing for some people as they typically look for the book to put their hand on. But all of these practices actually do that thing: accelerate requirements to value.
Thank you, Troy. And Mike, how about Lean IT?
So everything that we've heard about, the various frameworks and approaches, are really built on some core ideas and principles. And the concepts of Lean, the methodology of Lean, has been around for quite a while. You can trace it back actually hundreds of years. But modern Lean has been around about 65, 70 years now. And we could spend all day talking about it, but a great approach is to consider a simple house with two columns. At the top of that house is what most organizations are looking for at an enterprise level as well as an IT organization level. We want great quality, we want to control our cost, we want to drive productivity, we want to do it in the minimum time required to meet our customer expectations. We want to create safety, and in an IT organization we're talking about social safety. Safety to talk about the real problems, safety to speak up, and to ensure that we have understanding and trust in our organization. And of course we need incredible morale on our teams, or we're just not going to hold together. We're not going to really get through the barriers and the challenges of IT. I mean, it's a tough job. We all know that. And if you've ever worked on a team where the morale is low, that obviously translates into performance. So this whole thing is based on a base of learning. If you take away nothing else, when you think of Lean, think of learning. Lean is really all a model of creating a structured learning cycle. And that cycle is plan, do, check, act. There's other learning cycles, but that's the most accessible one. Another one is DMAIC. Maybe you've heard of that. But the idea here is to build two pillars. The pillar on the left is continuous improvement. So we're learning, we're improving, we're testing. And of course, if you think about the DevOps cycle, that's what it's all about. It's not just about finding a solution and saying we're done. But that pillar alone is often centered on tools. Nothing wrong with tools. It's the tools that get the work done. But that first pillar is really about creating value. Without the pillar on the right, respect for people, which is much more about the key social behaviors we need to develop on our teams, our house doesn't stand. And what Lean brings to us is a holistic, systemic approach on how we can really build the whole house. Another way to think of Lean is a simple cycle. That cycle always begins with understanding customer value. And there's techniques and methods to do that. Unfortunately, in IT, given the pressure and demands of the business, often we're forced to make assumptions or choose between priorities. Sometimes IT can actually be relegated to an order taker status, and that can create some issues. But if we begin with a clear understanding of customer value, from there, we need to understand our value stream and really get a handle on the multiple value streams, not just within IT, but within our enterprise, whether they're around services or products. We need to understand what that is. And there's a tool that can help you do that called value stream mapping. But again, if that tool is not balanced with the right behaviors, it actually makes things more complicated. I don't think it necessarily helps. When we understand our value streams, we then say, now we need to create flow. And to do that, as Troy mentioned, we start to take out waste in the process. We also look at variation, unnecessary complexity, and overburden, which is very common in IT. Then we introduce pull, where we're working to the rate and speed of our customer demand, and we do it over and over again, seeking improvement and perfection as we go. And the mantra that I like to use that attaches to all of this is really people, process, technology in that order. And what Lean IT brings to the conversation is first we engage the people, then we improve the process, and then we introduce the appropriate technology. And of course, given the demands of the business, often we jump in very quickly with the technology solution, only to discover after we implement and go live that the people aren't on board and we haven't improved the process. So what we've done is lock in a broken process and just automated that. That's kind of the essence of Lean IT.
Great, thanks. And on behalf of all the organizations that you guys represent, I'd like to thank you for being such outstanding advocates. And with that, I'd like to hand it over now to you, Deborah.
Well, thank you so much, Adrian, and I'm just pleased to be a part of this and have the opportunity to speak with Mark and Troy and Robert and Mike about their experiences. Thank you all for that in-depth description of your particular framework area that you're representing today. What I'd like to do now is mix it up a bit, and let's talk about how ITSM Cloud and DevOps and Lean work, and are they really better together? So why don't we get started, gentlemen? I really look forward to having this discussion with you. Let me go back a question. Oh, wait 1 second. I've got to go back. Okay, great. Question number one. The question I'd like to start with, and that would be directed at you, Mark. What's happening in the world of IT? Something feels different this time around. What's changed? It seems like the IT best practice training space is, used to waves of innovation, but something feels different this time. What do you think, Mark?
It does. It's a big question. I'm going to again focus on a particular area here at the moment. I'm sure the rest of the panelists will expand on this as well. One of the big things that I see, and I talk a lot about this regarding the cloud, the technology, whatever we have out there, is that I won't go too far into this. This thing called, we're in this wave of what we call digital disruption, and this area of innovation and all these types of things. First question you raise is, what is this definition of digital? And you know, it's a tricky one as well. But another way of looking at this is where we are in this industry has been called the fourth industrial revolution. Whether that's a marketing term that's put out there or not, I think we are in a new world of a new world that's driven by what we can do now. Technologies are fantastic. They're so superior, and a new world of consumerization of whatever it is, products, services, whether in our own lives or within the work lives that technology influences. So there's a huge change in how we consume, what we consume, and even this proliferation of social media. It's a different dynamic world out there, and again, part of this is embraced by digital is latest technologies, driven by the need for more innovation, or the fact that we can now do wondrous things with these technologies that are out there. I think one of the things is, so there's an element of consumer behavior changing how we consume IT in organizations, especially driven by how we consume it outside of organizations, and the impact that this now has on what we could call traditional frameworks and models and governance and things that we've had in the past. And from what I see generally in these waves, the technology generally goes before the guidance and frameworks to help us then use and address that and control the technologies. I think if we go back over various other industrial revolutions, you will see that the technology got out there first of all. Not necessarily a bad thing, but then we get in catch-up mode. So for the audience that we have today that's familiar with the standards and frameworks that we've used, the service management spaces and things like that, they're having to now catch up, and they can be a little bit slower to catch up than technology. I think that's where we are at the moment, where the industry is now catching up, which is good, but now we have to recognize the impact that this will have on our organizations and what we have to do, upskilling, learning, and then with these new frameworks that are coming out to address the technologies and to manage the rate of change in these technologies, what that organizational change requires. So it's interesting times, but I said it's ultimately what's being driven here is it's through innovation, through technology, and now I think we're in catch-up mode.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And Troy, are you seeing similar things?
So what is different is competition is different. Now, we've always had competition, and usually, by the way, I believe the change really only comes when you have an external driver or threat. We rarely ever get on the scale and go to the gym unless we have some external pressure, like a spouse that is carrying or a doctor that says we need to. What's different this time, and it's interesting, we had this discussion recently at one of the events I was speaking at, is that today's disruption in respect to the cloud has changed everything, as Mark has pointed out, is that you can have a competitive organization stand up a complete business model, infrastructure, environments, total, in a matter of weeks, and begin disrupting your product market strategy, basically taking on your customers, and you're starting to lose market share. And this can happen in the matter of weeks, let alone days even, if that's possible. And it's all because of what's now possible with the cloud-based technologies which are out there. So think about what that means to a brick and mortar organization that now has to pivot to stay alive, let alone stay in business, in such an accelerated way. There is no way we can actually operate at the speeds we have been for the last 2 decades. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's better, faster, cheaper is the new mantra.
Understood. And Mike, with your lean lenses, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing similar things to what the last 2 speakers talked about, but one thing that I've noticed most recently is I'm seeing the end of the black box. And when I say the black box, I'm talking about the business's view of IT. In the past, I remember speaking with CEOs, and they used that term. They said, IT is a black box. We really don't understand it. We're spending a lot of money on it, and it's not giving us what we need. Now I'm finding there's much more clarity and higher levels of expectation from the business as well as the end users and the customers on what IT is. And it makes perfect sense. Why? We all live in a world of IT. And the technology is so accessible now that it really has become part of who we are. So the mystery around it, the idea that only a handful of people really know what it is or understand it or can determine what it can provide for the business, that's gone away. And I feel like that black box or that mystery around IT has shifted. It's really evaporating. So what I'm seeing is, because of the disruptive innovation that's out there and the threat, and many of the companies that I work with are larger companies that are the brick and mortar, that have the market share, they're realizing now that business as usual is not going to work, and the bridge that they're on is really burning. They've got the classic burning platform. And they're realizing that if we do not embrace the SDLC as a value stream and truly create flow, it's a matter of time before, I mean, it could be 50 years, but it's a matter of time, and they're going to be out of business or at least significantly harmed in the market.
And Robert, why don't you weigh in? What are you seeing that's different this time around?
So I think we've seen a transition of power, and the power has gone from, the business and IT to the customer, the end user, the consumer, who are mandating a high level of quality and service. And I think we can all trace back the genesis of this many years and through many events. But the reality of it is that if you think about it, that the smartphone is probably what changed everything, putting power at people's fingertips and ubiquitous access and things like that. So people are demanding that they get goods and services and products, right through their smartphone or their TV or whatever it is, communication device they do. And patterns are changing. So we finally have the first generation that has grown up with computing power their whole lives, the millennials, and they've had it since day zero. They've known nothing else but the value of computers. So they now take the fact that technology can do anything rather than, look at the proactive side. How can they do it rather than what it can't do? And they are really driving us in terms of this speed and velocity. And speed and velocity, which we're talking about today, are answers to the problem. And why now? It's different. It's different this time because we've actually got that momentum. And I think this time we've got over the hump. We've gone beyond that chasm. We've crossed the chasm to really reinforce the points that the other speakers have made.
Yeah, I totally align with everything that all of you have said. I look at my own grandchildren and the fact that they've been using technology since the age of 3, being able to navigate their grandmother's iPad and go and find Dora the Explorer or anything else they were interested in YouTube. So there is a whole generation now that's growing up with this technology, and it is a different world than when I started out many, many years ago. So thank you for that. I would like to try to see if I can move this slide to the next one. And Adrian, if not, I might need your assistance to do that. Great, thank you. So the next question I have is, I think the audience is very, very interested. This is a key question of understanding how does your particular framework connect and work with the other frameworks. So Troy, why don't we start with you with the DevOps area?
Yeah, so Deborah, I'd actually redraw the picture because as I mentioned, DevOps isn't a framework. It's actually a collection of basically multiple frameworks in a packaging, bundling approach. So if you wanted to take that blue thing and make it larger than everything and put it in the background, it's really more an aggregation, a rallying call to these are all good things and they all achieve this business problem. So in essence, you can't think about DevOps connecting to frameworks because it's really just a movement to say let's use all of these approaches to generate speed and flow.
Okay, very good. And Mike, Lean IT?
So if I was, I'm going to just hitchhike on Troy's approach. If I was going to uh, redraw or recast the diagram, I would draw a foundation or a platform below it, because I think we've heard all the speakers point out that so many of the ideas, the methods, the mindsets, the beliefs, even the tool sets really are originally from Lean. And these skills were honed and developed through many years, beginning with the heritage of manufacturing, which started as a craft and moved to an industry and mass industrialization, and now is moving to the term I like is mass customization. So we still have a massive demand, but we need the customer or the end user to feel like they've got a custom solution, which is exactly what we have when we can configure our smartphone the way we like it, or download the app we need with a couple of clicks. So this mass customization is kind of the evolution of lean manufacturing. We're seeing this same renaissance in IT. So I would kind of create that foundation as the Lean IT principles.
Great, great. Thank you for that, Mike. Mark, why don't you weigh in on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. Troy wants DevOps to consume us all. I'm only joking here. Mike wants Lean to hold us all up. I'm kind of squashed in the middle here somewhere with ITSM, but they're correct in what they've said there as well. It's they do fit in, and it's how they fit in and how they underpin each other, which is important. I think I do this in reverse order, I think, to get back to cloud. So as Mike was talking about Lean there, and key elements of Lean, again, is looking at cost, reduction in cost, removing bottlenecks, not necessarily reduction in cost, but that is an output, improving efficiencies, improving flow, eliminating waste, supported by, as Troy's been talking about, DevOps and how we get continual delivery going on. And it's important that, say, a framework around about cloud recognizes, which we do, and addresses and says, how are we going to get these benefits from a Lean approach and a DevOps approach? Even if an organization is not thinking about that inherently, let's have the structures that allow that to happen, and it's generally going to happen a lot easier. The one example I generally use on this, a simple example, is change management. So change management, everyone's familiar with that. We do a change in IT or software, whatever it is. There's a specific process for that. There's a flow. And in some organizations, you'll find it can take days or weeks to get changes through. With cloud and the newer technologies, you can make changes in an instant. I'm not saying you should, but again, you can make smaller changes, smaller incremental changes to improve flow and efficiencies. And then to allow that to happen, you need to have a DevOps kind of mentality to apply to your change management system. So change management from the ITSM ITIL world is still sound, the construct is sound, but you want to adapt that change management to allow for a DevOps and a Lean mentality, and that can be easy to do that. And it should be easy to do that, and then we still maintain that we have proper controls to mitigate risk. But in this DevOps Lean environment, we're doing smaller incremental changes more often, which will be less risky. And now, as Troy mentioned, DevOps is facilitated with tools, not just tools, but when you get the culture and the mindset in and you use tool sets efficiently to allow changes to make happen. And if those changes are successful, they continue. If not, you use change management to stop. So it's about, as was represented there, foundation, DevOps overarching within there, working alongside all of these to get the best from the latest technologies and to make incremental changes, more efficiency, all this kind of stuff.
Okay, well, Robert, I think you might be happy with my slide. I'm not sure. I put ITSM in the heart.
I'm happy with the slide too.
What do you think?
Hey, I'll take the slide as written from my ITSMF perspective. Thank you very much. But it clearly shows the intersection and overlap of all the components, right? The fact is that if you look at them together, they all work together. And, I think we've heard some great examples of, how Lean IT works in, and Lean IT is a fundamental component of DevOps. It's Lean and how you work your Lean methodologies. But also the fact that, in a regulated environment, you've got to control change, and you've got to manage change and how you bring change to production. And there's no reason why you can't do it rapidly or quickly. The reality of what we see here is that we want to instrument these processes and instrument them in a way that drives the velocity through the pipeline that our organisations are looking for without sacrificing the quality that they desire. And people think that DevOps is a license to fail quickly. And you can actually take that argument if you want, but actually it's a reality that if you put your good process in place and you put mitigating controls in place, you're not actually going to fail. You're going to get there quicker. And that's one of the things we've seen. So you've actually got to use these frameworks together and of course cloud is not really a framework, it's a delivery vehicle, but the reality of it is that you've got to use these together with your traditional compute capabilities to retire technical debt. And the ITSM processes that you've used and loved, you're probably going to transform them. You're probably going to change the way you do change management in this environment. You're going to do more change, changes that don't require huge approval changes or change advisory board meetings. You're going to be looking at the risk element and fast tracking the pipeline that way. So, in short, yep, I think that we could argue this slide for an hour between us and look at refinements to it. But the reality of it is, we need a graphic which puts them all together because you need them all.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
Very good, gentlemen. If we can go to the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about this ultimate question, right? Yeah. Is ITSM, Cloud, DevOps, Lean, are they really better together? Are they relevant for folks trying to achieve their IT transformational journeys? And Mike, let me start with you with that question.
Well, I think it's fairly obvious that absolutely they're relevant. They complement each other. But I think we need to get some clarity. People that are moving towards this and say, look, we need to do something. But I'm looking at a box of tools and components and pieces. So some are tools, some are frameworks, some are philosophies. And are we better together? Absolutely. I don't just want one piece of it, but I think people need to get very clear on, do they understand what they're looking at? I think the last discussion illustrated that quite clearly. Those were some great examples of cloud is really an enabler in today's world to try to apply some of these lean concepts or to create a true continuous deployment DevOps environment without the cloud is problematic. I don't think it's impossible, but it's definitely going to be really difficult. Even to create an agile environment that the customer can feel, to do that, and some organizations, I've been a part of that, have tried to do that without the cloud, bump into some barriers and some hurdles. But also to be clear that we need a management structure, we need controls, we need security, particularly in today's day and age, that we start, and this is a core lean principle, we start by building effectiveness in what we do, then we move to efficiency. And if we don't have the effectiveness in our system, making something efficient isn't going to make it better, it's just going to make it faster. And all these components are relevant, but without a vision of where we're going, without a clear definition of customer value, we really are just guessing. It may be very technical, but it's nothing more than a guess and an experiment. So I think it's really important to see all these things as complementary, but to have some clarity and some strategy around how we're going to use them and how we're going to measure and define our progress.
Well, I know that. Thank you for that, Mike, because I see that Troy is really very interested to make some comments here. So Troy, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'd like to put it into the context of another problem that we face. In general, our culture is tribal and or silo oriented. It's the reality that we face based on a vertical versus horizontal perspective. And what happens today is all of these topics are being done somewhere in the organization in different tribes, in different silos. And rather than collaborating, they're actually currently competing. And that competition is increasing variability and denigrating the goal of anyone because they're all opting to say it's about this, it's about that. And the reality is that disintegration, when it should be all working collectively together, is much more damaging than asking the question, do we need one? If the reality is we need them all, but today people don't understand that they actually connect, which is why we're having this webinar, and they're counteracting their own objectives by this tribal nature.
Right. Understood. And Robert, why don't you weigh in on this question?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because with Troy and the comment there, one of the opportunity for us all, if I put it that way, is actually to look at the intersections and how we reform them all together. And I think, if we talk about the religious wars that we fight over frameworks, it's actually, if you look in DevOps training and education, read the Phoenix Project or any other materials that are out there right now, it talks about collaboration, communication, and working together, and changing the way we work as well. And I think fundamentally, one of the things I talk a lot about to people is, okay, so your change management process is going to transition. It's not going away. Maybe you don't need a CAB every 10 minutes, right? Change advisory board. Maybe there's a lot of change that you can actually introduce the risk assessment into the process. And, and as you look at Lean and the Lean Campus and Lean methodologies, Lean allows you to produce a most MVP, or, a minimum viable product, and you can go and test that and curate that and go and work on top of that, and then do iterations to it or additional changes to that over time to gain the functionality to get closer to the end product. I love the quote that says, I don't know what I want till I see it, and that's the true with scoping. We rarely scope a solution in a waterfall methodology that is perfect first time. In fact, I'd like to see a couple of good examples of that. So these frameworks working together gives the capability and the velocity to do so in such a way that it's appropriately delivered with the velocity it needs, with the quality it needs, and also with the relevant controls we need. Things like the ransomware scare last week, we absolutely need security in place. And your service management comes to the forefront in a situation like that, when you can go and identify every potential impacted configuration and go out and remediate it. So you need to use these frameworks together. And I think that's one of the key aspects as we go forward. We need to work together to evolve them into something that we can leverage and use as a community.
Absolutely. And Mark, I mean, did Mike and Robert and Troy hit on all the key points, or do you also have some weigh-in here about better?
Probably something left out. They've hit on all the key points there, as I've said, the tribals, these religious wars. The word I was going to choose there was silos. We're all saying the same and seeing the same thing. And I see from the CCC perspective, as we see, not just in our portfolio, but in other portfolios you see within DevOps and Lean, that as new frameworks, training, educations, whatever it is coming out, is actually recognizing and trying to link to each other, knowing that that's the way forward. It's not going to be a one framework suits everybody now. It's going to have to be a bit of numerous frameworks, and that in itself can cause some challenges within organizations who have either adopted one or two frameworks verbatim for the last number of years, or who may struggle to get buy-in to get more training or training budget to say, look, we need to look at a wider portfolio of trainings and courses and educations and frameworks and books and references to be able to pull all of this together in this new world that we referenced earlier on, saying the consumer is different. The consumer has computing and IT in their pocket like they've never had before. They expect it to work. They expect it to be agile. They expect it to be quick, lean, and get all these improvements. And just a final thing here is I generally see, again, the technology consideration being taken first, and then comes realization and the headache as to why are we not getting the benefits. And then the realization into we need education, awareness, training, and integration of all these frameworks within an organization. But that if that's coming later on, you've taken the wrong path. So absolutely, yeah, they should be. But there are some challenges there, but they're easily overcome. So a lot of it is about the awareness and the knowledge of how these should work together and how an organization should bring that in.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And, gentlemen, I have one final question for all of you, because I think that we touched on a lot of topics about, what's happening in world IT, what's different, and how do these frameworks connect with one another, and are they actually work all better together? And I guess the final question for our audience in terms of this interview panel is, okay, how do you get started? Where do you go from here? What's critical for success? And Robert, I'm going to give you the first bite of the apple to answer this one.
Wow, first bite. So I'll take that with both hands. So, and I know others will comment on this as well. But I think in terms of what you've got to do first, there's many places to start. But one of the first things that I look at is where's the low-hanging fruit. And how can you actually, look at your opportunity and gain immediate value to show wins? And one of the things about being in DevOps is constant reinforcement of value and constant education of value. And I think one of the things I've seen a lot of lately, which other panelists may talk about as well, is this notion of just understanding your pipeline. So let's look at our process from beginning to end for a particular piece of work or application or business service, and let's look at how we actually instrument that process. Now, the others are going to have some other comments on how to do that effectively in different ways. But how do I actually understand what that pipeline looks like, and how do I know where the intersections are? How do I know where those pieces of automation are? One of the interesting things is one of the basic principles of DevOps from a practical and execution perspective is automation. And we're really good at automation. So why are we not automating the end process? And I think this is one of the opportunities we have. So how do you do that, and how do you know that? You actually have to do some immersion in education. You actually have to understand what your organization looks like, how to put the people together, how to manage the culture and merge the culture, and then how to actually get them education and bring others in the team up to speed on the skills that they don't have. And I think, let's start with that one as my first lob over the window, and we'll let the others fill in some gaps.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Mike, what is your input on here? Where do they go from here? What's critical for them?
So, of course, I'm a bit biased, but I would take a very, very lean approach. And the first thing we need to do is answer this question. What is the business problem or opportunity we are trying to solve? And often we do not have clarity on that. And it needs to start with the CIO and the CEO sitting down and saying, really, what is this all about? There's this tremendous gravitational pull that's going to pull us towards a framework or a book or a philosophy, and we're good at this in IT. We can get busy very, very quickly, and before you know it, we've brought in some tools and we've gone down the rat hole, and here we are basically committing the same mistake that we've done in the past, and that is what we call a tools-based approach. So a tools-based approach is we mistake the methodology for the solution. And what we really want to do is first get very, very clear on what is the business problem we're trying to solve. And that should be articulated in 2 or 3 sentences, but it can be deceptively difficult to really get down to the essence of what that is. Once we do that, I agree completely with what everybody else has said. We need to understand our current state or our current condition. Do we deeply, deeply understand what we're doing today? What are the value streams? What are the applications? What are the integration points? What is automated? What is not? For years, we've been talking about a CMDB in the ITIL community, and rarely do I see anything close to that. Now, that doesn't mean we've got to go build a CMDB, but it does mean we need to get a handle on what's happening right now so we can start to forge forward with a very, very structured framework on improvement. And it's just really easy to jump ahead and not get clarity up front with what success looks like.
Okay, and Mark, could you weigh in on this as well?
I would. I was going to say, Michael, don't get me started on CMDB today. We'll be here for a while.
No, we can't be here for a while, gents. We can't. So, Mark?
Very briefly, back to the question. My perspective of it is simple: awareness and acceptance. And when I say that awareness and acceptance in a broad sense of where are we today, where's your organization today in this changing world of IT, where's your organization today in this world of digital disruption, again, whatever that means, and where is your organization today in this world of what we call the fourth industrial revolution. You're going to need to have awareness and acceptance, first of all, of where you are in that, what that is, to get back to Michael's point being understanding the current condition of where you are against those four parameters and everything else that we said about. But I think that's crucial. If we don't know where we are in this changing world, we're not going to succeed, I don't think, going back to early conversations saying the challengers, the challenger organizations that are coming out and springing up, as Troy put it, within weeks, even days, if that's possible. So I think it's awareness and acceptance.
Very good. And Troy, you get the last say on this important question for the audience.
Yeah, Deborah, a lot of what we said sometimes seems daunting and takes a lot of work. There's a lot of systemic foundational issues we're facing, leadership challenges. But here's a quick low-hanging fruit that Rob mentioned. The reality is relationship and trust and shared accountability go a long way. And Lean in its Kaizen event, Agile in its Dev kind of Scrum team, and now DevOps in a larger cross-functional team have found that by the right teaming structures, usually oriented around product and service outcomes, not tasks, can actually cover a great multitude of basically problems. You don't even have to fix everything right away to get better flow. Just get people in a room who actually like each other now versus compete with each other, and they start to share this shared accountability and trust factor, and you're already going to see major acceleration of value. Not that that's the only thing, but if I was to start anywhere, I would create structure that improves teaming.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the insight of this. I think it was really relevant for our audience to really understand how all of these areas work together and to really get your point of view being recognized thought leaders and subject matter experts in your area. So thank you so much for that. And Adrian, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And thank you, panelists. This was very exciting. We do have a bunch of questions that came in. For the interest of time, what I'd like to suggest is that we take those questions offline. I will ask all you panelists to answer those questions, and then when we send out the notification of the recording, that we actually add those questions and answers to that email that we're going to send out. So I'd like to thank everybody again for being here. If anybody wants to get in touch with us or one of us, here are the ways to do that. And again, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the audience for sticking with us, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. Again, if you have more questions, dear audience, feel free to submit them to any of us, and we will get back to you as quickly as we can. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day, your evening, or your night, and talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, everyone.